Men who mop floors don't get $500 million.
Sign it, Owen. Men who mop floors don't get to question a $500 million estate. Richard Vale made sure the Charlotte probate lobby heard him. At 3:41, Friday afternoon, two brokers waited beside a model of Blake Tower while a courier held the sale documents. Probate intake ended at 4. If Owen signed the transaction, could move forward. Claire's mother Evelyn pushed the paper across the marble counter with one lacquered fingernail. It rested inside a jade green folder beneath a polished stone seal Claire had once called a symbol of trust between two families. Today, it looked like a warning. Owen still wore his Navy porter's uniform from the hotel night shift bleach marking one cuff. Claire stood several feet away in a cream suit. She did not come to her husband's side. "You've had 3 days," she said. "Please don't embarrass me again." Richard gave a dry laugh. He would need something to lose before he could understand what he's signing away. The waiver was only 2 pages long, separate property, voluntary consent, no future claim. But one sentence near the seal had been reprinted in narrower type. Owen placed his thumb beside it. "Who changed to paragraph 8 after yesterday's hearing?" Claire's expression tightened. Evelyn snapped the folder shut, nearly catching his hand. "No one changed anything. You are creating confusion because attention is the only leverage you have." "Then open it," Owen said. "Let the clerk compare it to the filed copy." The probate clerk behind the glass stopped typing. Her badge read Mara Ellis. Her attention settled on the embossed number beneath the seal. Richard slid a silver pen across the counter. It struck Owen's knuckles and fell to the floor. "We fed you and housed you," Richard said. "Sign before 4 or leave with exactly what you brought into the marriage." Owen glanced at Claire. For 11 years he had excused her silences. This one was different. She already knew which paragraph had changed. The digital clock above the filing windows clicked to 3:46. One broker whispered that the buyer would walk if probate authority was not confirmed. Evelyn heard him and her composure cracked. It was not her daughter's marriage. Owen picked up the pen. Richard smiled. Then Owen set it on Mara Ellis's counter. "I refuse to sign," he said. "Please pull the freeze order from this morning's sealed docket." The smile vanished from Richard's face. Mara entered a case number Owen recited from memory. A yellow restriction banner appeared beside a hearing timestamp and a judge's seal. "Are you asking me to place this filing and the tower closing before the supervising officer?" "I'm asking you to put the record where everyone can see it." Claire crossed the lobby at last. "Owen, if you do this, my accounts freeze with everything else." Owen met her eyes. "Then you knew the order existed." Richard reached toward the jade folder, but Mara drew it behind the glass. A security officer moved between him and the counter. The courier lowered the sale packet and one broker called the buyer. Mara printed a single page. At the bottom of the sheet was a timestamp recorded before Claire's parents claimed Owen had been notified. Beside it sat a restriction broad enough to stop the sale and trigger a review of every authorization attached to the jade seal. Mara read the first line twice. Then she raised her eyes to Owen. "This order doesn't treat you as a spouse making a claim," she said. "It identifies you as—" "Don't," Claire said. It was the first frightened word anyone had heard from her. Owen did not look triumphant. He looked tired, like a man who had worked through the night and arrived just in time to keep an old promise. By sunset, Blake Tower would be under emergency review. Claire's access to the family accounts would be suspended. And the night porter her parents called, too poor to understand the estate, would become the only person in the room who knew why $500 million could no longer move. But to understand what Mara Ellis was about to read aloud, and why Owen had carried that jade-marked burden in silence. We have to go back 11 years to a hospital room where his mother placed one final condition on her legacy. 11 years earlier, Naomi Blake lay beneath a hospital blanket while rain traced the window above Charlotte's old courthouse. The nurses knew her only as a retired records supervisor. Only Owen sat beside her holding a jade seal no larger than a silver dollar. Naomi pressed his fingers around the cool stone which bore the image of an open book. "This was never meant to make us important," she whispered. "It was meant to keep a door open after we were gone. School," she said, "for the ones who are always told the money belongs somewhere else." She made him promise never to spend the principal for Comfort Place. a family name above a student's need, or approve anything he had not read. Naomi had taught him records with no tolerance for guessing. At the bottom of her instructions was a reference number. Owen memorized it before she closed her eyes. 3 days later, Naomi died. The seal entered a probate file and her plan entered a legal maze Owen did not yet understand. By the time he did, he had already married Claire Vale. In those early years, Claire sat through court appointments and claimed to admire how little he cared about status. Her parents treated his quietness as gratitude. When probate stalled, Richard offered them an apartment and made sure Owen knew who paid the rent. 6 months later, Owen took a night job at the Dunley Hotel and moved them into a modest rental near Plaza Midwood. From 11 at night until 7 in the morning, nobody asked who his wife's parents were. He polished rails, carried luggage, and repaired loose hinges. During meal breaks, he studied probate procedure and filled a pocket notebook with filing numbers and questions for a legal aid attorney. Claire's family ignored it. On the Monday before the tower sale, Owen returned home at 7:28 a.m. and found the jade green folder on the kitchen table. Claire had placed his coffee beside it. Her phone kept lighting with messages from her father. "They need your signature by Friday," she said. Owen remained standing. "What is it?" "A marital waiver. Standard protection for the sale." The document carried a replica of Naomi's seal. The original had been held by the probate court since her death. No private attorney should have been using its image. Who drafted this? Claire stirred coffee she was not drinking. The family office. That is not a person. Her spoon stopped against the cup. "My father said you would do this." Owen opened the folder. 2 pages, no exhibits, and language surrendering claims connected to prior trusts or disputed assets. The signature block falsely stated that he had received independent legal advice. "I can't sign this." Claire's phone buzzed again. "Can't she asked or won't?" "Both." "The buyer's money clears Friday," she said. "You do not get to stop it because one stamp reminds you of your mother." Owen kept his voice level. "That stamp belongs to her probate record." Something passed across Claire's face too quickly to name. She gathered her handbag. "If you make this public, they will say you waited 11 years to chase our money." After she left, Owen placed the waiver beneath the lamp. The seal looked convincing until he noticed one shallow break in the carved book. Naomi's original stone had a chip across its lower corner from the day she dropped it on the courthouse steps. Whoever copied it had worked from an older photograph. Owen slept for 2 hours, then took the bus to the Mecklenburg County Courthouse and searched the reference number Naomi had made him memorize. Most entries were sealed, one was not. It listed a review hearing for Thursday morning, 1 day before the sale. Owen had never received notice. He printed the docket line and folded it behind his hotel badge. That night, Owen cleaned champagne glasses and rose petals from the hotel lobby while Claire dined with her parents and the tower buyer. At 2:13 a.m., his phone displayed a message from Richard. "Sign Friday or vacate the apartment by month's end." Owen saved the message. The apartment had never belonged to Richard, but the threat revealed what the family believed Owen's home, marriage, and dignity were privileges they could withdraw. At dawn, he enlarged the seal at a copy shop. A registration number, hidden beneath the imitation stonework, did not match Naomi's probate file. When Owen returned home, Claire was gone. On the kitchen table beside her untouched wedding ring lay a second version of the waiver. Paragraph 8 had changed. It made Owen swear he had never held, inherited, or been promised any interest connected to the Blake estate. He read that sentence 3 times. Then he called the courthouse and asked who had requested Thursday's sealed hearing. The clerk could not give him a name. She could give him one fact. The request had been filed from inside Vale family office. By Wednesday morning, Claire had already decided what everyone would believe about Owen. At Vale family office, her photograph filled the lobby screen beneath the words "Education Without Barriers." She had built her public image around student grants and speeches about equal opportunity. The receptionist saw Owen's porter uniform and directed him to the service entrance. After he identified himself, she called upstairs. By the time security allowed him into the elevator, employees had heard that Claire's husband had arrived unannounced about the estate. Claire received him in a glass conference room overlooking downtown Charlotte. Richard and Evelyn sat beside her. Between them rested the jade green folder and a fresh silver pen. "This is becoming inappropriate," Claire said. "Why did this office request a sealed hearing in my mother's probate case?" Owen asked. Richard leaned back. "Because the tower sale required housekeeping. Probate is not housekeeping. To people who understand complex assets, it is." Evelyn opened the waiver. "Marital consent prevents a spouse from attacking a lawful sale. Sign, and nobody needs to discuss your mother." The veils described surrender as procedure, then treated questions as proof of ignorance. Owen pointed to paragraph 8. This language was changed. Claire folded her hands. "Our attorneys clarified it. After falsely stating I received legal advice." Richard's chair scraped against the floor. For a moment, the patient benefactor disappeared, leaving a man afraid that a porter had noticed something his lawyers expected him to miss. 2 senior employees entered, and Richard's public smile returned. "Owen is struggling with standard language," he told them. "Grief can make old disputes feel current." They gave their sympathy to Richard, not Owen. Claire guided her husband into the corridor, as though protecting him from further embarrassment. The moment the glass door closed, her fingers tightened around his arm. "My board votes on my appointment after the sale," she whispered. "If the deal fails, my father will say I could not control my own household." There was the fear beneath her cruelty. Claire's authority depended on people who could remove it with one disappointed glance. She had decided Owen was easier to break. "Tell them the waiver is wrong," he said, "and lose everything I built. A false signature cannot protect what you built." At the elevator, she offered separate housing and 6 months of expenses if he signed by noon Friday. She was purchasing his silence, not protecting their marriage. He refused. Before leaving, Owen passed the donor gallery. Naomi's name appeared nowhere, but her open book symbol stood beside Claire's scholarship campaign. A display promised a new fund after the tower sale. His mother's symbol had become their decoration. Her purpose had become their advertising. That was why Owen could not walk away. He could lose the apartment and survive his marriage ending. But signing would let the Vales move the estate before any student saw what Naomi intended. At the courthouse, Mara Ellis listened as Owen explained the 2 versions. He accused no one. He asked how notice for Thursday's sealed hearing had supposedly reached him. Mara searched the docket. "The notice is marked delivered Tuesday at 9:06 a.m., she said. "Delivered where?" Her eyes narrowed at the monitor. "Vale Family Office. I was at the Dunley Hotel until 7:12. Then I went home. It says authorized household counsel received it. I have no counsel." Mara reached for the phone, then stopped before lifting it. "I can't amend a sealed docket from this window. Only the supervising probate officer can order a timestamp audit. How do I request one?" "Appear tomorrow. State that you received no notice and face a signature deadline before review." She printed the hearing location, then lowered her voice. "Bring the waiver. Both versions." Owen returned to the hotel for another night shift. At 11:40, his supervisor called him into the linen office. An anonymous complaint claimed Owen used hotel computers for estate business. His terminal access was suspended and 2 shifts were removed. The timing was not accidental. Owen emptied his locker while a coworker showed him the stories online. A business post praised Claire for protecting the scholarship program during a private dispute. Comments called Owen an estranged husband threatening grants unless he received tower money. Claire had turned his mother's promise into a shield and placed him on the other side of it. Owen carried his uniform home. Claire's closet stood half empty and the folder containing both waivers was gone. Then Owen remembered the copy he had made at dawn. It was folded inside his pocket notebook along with the reference number and the public docket line. Lot 803. Thursday morning, he arrived at the sealed hearing with 1 surviving copy and no attorney. Claire was already there with her parents and family counsel. When Richard saw the thin notebook in Owen's hand, he smiled. The hearing room door opened, and a clerk announced that the matter had been withdrawn 10 minutes earlier by someone identified in the system as Owen Blake. Owen stood beneath the corridor clock while the clerk repeated that the withdrawal had been submitted under his name at 7:52 that morning. "I was on a city bus at 7:52. Family counsel suggested Owen had forgotten authorizing a representative. "Name the representative," Owen said. The attorney could not. Richard called Owen confused, and Evelyn urged a private resolution. Claire stayed silent until Owen asked whether she had taken the waivers. "Our apartment," she replied. You mean the place my family provided? The cruelty was deliberate, delivered before clerks, a deputy, and waiting families. Owen removed his pocket notebook. I want the withdrawal challenged and the delivery record audited. The clerk could not reopen a canceled matter from the hallway. Take me to someone who can. That quiet refusal changed the direction of the morning. Supervising probate officer Nora Bell met them 20 minutes later. Richard immediately described a bitter spouse obstructing a legitimate sale. Nora stopped him. The only question before me is whether this court's record was altered or used without authorization. Owen explained the missing notice, altered paragraph, and false claim that he had counsel. He requested a timestamp audit and a hold on estate-linked transfers until the court identified who used his name. Family counsel argued that a photocopy established nothing. Nora agreed. The original was missing and the withdrawal carried valid credentials. She would order a limited audit but not halt a $500 million transaction on suspicion. Richard's smile returned. Nora added one condition: any Friday waiver had to pass through public probate intake before 4. If the audit found a conflict, her office could act before recording closed. The Vales had their deadline. Owen had one narrow door. Outside the conference room, Claire finally spoke to him alone. You asked them to freeze everything. I asked them to protect the record. My credit lines, the campaign accounts, the board appointment, you know what a freeze would do. You knew what the waiver would do to me. Claire's voice sharpened. You had 11 years to become something other than a night porter. She had once said his work made him honest. Now she used it to argue that honesty was all he deserved. At noon, the hotel suspended Owen without pay while reviewing the anonymous complaint. An hour later, his apartment manager said Vale Family Office had withdrawn its lease guarantee. Owen had until Monday to prove he could pay a loan. Richard met Owen outside the courthouse with a settlement figure written on a business card: $200,000. It was enough for rent, legal help, and a fresh start. Sign, withdraw the audit, and it is yours, Richard said. Owen studied the number, then asked one question. What happens to my mother's scholarship? Richard slipped the card back into his coat. There is no plan. There is an old woman's unfinished wish that my family has spent 11 years cleaning up. That answer made Owen's choice simple. Before closing, Owen asked Mara Ellis how anyone could withdraw a sealed hearing remotely. Through an authorized account, she said, or through credentials linked to the original filing. Whose credentials? That is what the audit must determine. The audit would compare the notice withdrawal and filing terminal. The notice had reached Vale Family Office Tuesday. The withdrawal appeared Thursday. Yet the waiver claimed Owen received legal advice Wednesday before he saw the revised paragraph. Remembering Naomi's instruction, Owen read the waiver again from the last line upward. The paragraph about the Blake estate was not limited to marital rights. It covered successor interests, contingent designations, and any benefit arising from a protective order. They were not merely asking him to abandon a claim. They expected an order. Owen did not know what the order contained. He knew the Vales feared it enough to alter a waiver, use his identity, threaten his home, and offer $200,000. At 5:18, Claire called. Leave Charlotte tonight, she said. Take the money. I can tell them you signed somewhere else. Why are you warning me? Because after tomorrow, my father will not let this stay private. It stopped being private when you used my name. She denied withdrawing the hearing. Owen believed she might be telling the truth, but that did not erase the waiver or her silence. Claire, who told you my accounts would freeze? The line went quiet. Then she ended the call. Owen packed a suitcase that evening, then paused over Naomi's notebook and the copied waiver. Leaving might save his home and what remained of his marriage. Staying was his only chance to protect the promise behind the open book seal. He unpacked. At 7:10, Friday morning, he was the first person waiting outside the probate office. Mara arrived carrying coffee and stopped when she saw him. The audit completed overnight, she said. Then I see it. Not yet. Supervisory review. Did it find a conflict? Mara chose her words carefully. It found enough that an emergency order was signed at 9:17 last night. Owen checked the empty corridor. Then why hasn't anyone told me? Mara glanced toward the elevator where Claire's family counsel had just appeared with the jade green folder under his arm. I think she said they were hoping you would sign before you asked. By 9, Friday morning, Vale family office had converted the tower sale into a public celebration. Press cameras faced Claire beneath Naomi's open book symbol and a promise to fund 200 scholarships after closing. Owen watched the broadcast on a courthouse lobby television. Claire spoke about duty and opportunity. When asked whether her estranged husband was threatening the sale, she never used Owen's name. "We have offered him fairness and privacy," Claire said. "Some people mistake kindness for weakness." The audience applauded. At 10:20, family council arrived at probate intake with the original jade green folder. Mara Ellis marked it received but refused to process the waiver without Owen's signature. The attorney called Richard, who increased the settlement to $300,000. Owen stood beside Mara's window. "No. Then we will document that your refusal destroyed a scholarship campaign." "A campaign is not my mother's plan." Richard laughed. "Your mother left unfinished notes and a chipped stone. Claire built something real." Owen requested the emergency order. Mara said supervisory review had not released it and the audit remained sealed. For the next 4 hours, Owen waited. Buyer representatives moved between Blake Tower and the courthouse. Reporters gathered after learning that marital consent delayed the sale. The hotel confirmed Owen's suspension. Claire's board postponed the scholarship launch and online comments accused him of stealing students' futures. The Vales had made Naomi's dream the weapon used against her son. At 3:12, Nora called both sides into a review room. Owen expected the audit. Instead, family council challenged his standing to receive it. Family council argued that Owen had no original seal or instrument proving a lawful estate interest. His copy could have been altered and Naomi's plan might never have been completed. Nora asked Owen if he had anything else. He placed his hotel badge notebook copied waiver and enlarged seal on the table. None could unlock a sealed order. Nora said the original waiver would be tested when presented for signature. Until then, the audit remained restricted. Richard checked his watch. "Then we have 40 minutes. The final pressure moved into the public lobby. At 3:41, Evelyn pushed the jade waiver across the marble counter while Richard mocked Owen's porter uniform and his ability to understand a $500 million estate. Claire watched from several feet away as lawyers, brokers, reporters, and the Tower Courier formed a silent audience. Owen knew the missing piece was inside the record they were racing to close. Evelyn opened the folder to paragraph 8. "Sign and the scholarship campaign survives." The waiver declared that Naomi's promise created no enforceable interest and surrendered Owen's benefit from any protective order. "You knew an order had been signed," he said. Claire's eyes moved toward her father. Richard tapped the signature line. "What we knew is irrelevant. What you can prove is nothing." Richard told reporters Owen had rejected counsel and $300,000. Evelyn tore the scholarship announcement through the middle. "Every name denied funding belongs to you," she said. They wanted him to believe protecting Naomi's plan was the same as destroying it. Claire approached with the silver pen. "If any part of our marriage was real," she said, "sign for the students." Owen's hand closed around the pen. Camera lights blinked. Richard smiled toward the reporters. Evelyn held the torn scholarship page where everyone could see it. Owen remembered Naomi's promise to keep a door open for students told the money belonged elsewhere. Then he remembered her final rule: never approve anything you have not read yourself. He placed the pen on Mara's counter. "I refuse." Richard announced that the scholarship campaign was canceled. Claire said Owen would receive divorce papers before Monday. Evelyn asked security to remove him from the family's closing. Owen appeared to have lost his work, home marriage, and the public meaning of his mother's wish. Then he did the one thing the Vales had spent all week preventing. "I took the proof directly to the person controlling the record. File the original waiver," he told Mara. "Pull the emergency order and request the timestamp audit. Put my refusal and their deadline on record." Family council objected. Security blocked Richard while Mara drew the waiver behind the glass. "Once filed, it cannot be removed without notation," she said. "Then do not file it," Claire demanded. Mara studied her. "Your counsel presented it for filing at 10:20 this morning." The attorney's face tightened. Mara scanned the registration number and entered Owen's probate reference. The system rejected it. She tried the number hidden beneath the imitation seal. A warning box appeared. The hearing withdrawal and notice delivery had been authenticated through the same account. Vale family office. Reporters saw the words before Richard blocked their view. That proves a clerical routing issue, he said, nothing more. Then, the audit will confirm that Owen replied. Mara requested supervisory release. At 3:47, the courier lowered the tower documents. Claire stood beside the torn announcement as the system began answering to someone other than her father. Mara's printer activated. The first page carried Nora Bell's signature, a judge's electronic seal, and 4 words across the top: Emergency Estate Freeze Order. Mara read the protected asset value, then checked it again. $500 million. The sale had not merely been delayed. The estate had been locked before Owen ever touched the pen. Richard recovered first. A temporary freeze proves nothing, he said. Courts issue them before closings. Nora Bell entered carrying the signed order and instructed the courier to surrender the sale packet. The probate record identified an undisclosed protected interest, Nora said. Richard demanded a private conference. Owen refused. They made the accusation public, he said. Read the finding publicly. Nora asked Mara to continue. The order confirmed that Naomi had contributed the land beneath Blake Tower to the partnership that became Vale Family Office. Instead of cash, she retained beneficial units tied to the property and any later sale. She continued working as a record supervisor. The proceeds were reserved for an education trust. Redevelopment had increased the protected value to $500 million. The Vales managed the assets. They did not own Naomi's interest. Evelyn interrupted. Naomi's interest expired when she died. Mara, read the next paragraph. Naomi's sealed instructions passed the interest to her only son. Owen was the contingent beneficiary and designated fiduciary until the scholarship trust activated. Owen had not married into the estate. Claire had married its hidden beneficiary. Family counsel argued that a contingent designation did not equal ownership and might be lifted after review. That is possible, Nora said. It is why the order preserves the assets instead of distributing them. The freeze handed Owen nothing. It barred everyone, including him, from transferring or spending the estate until a full hearing interpreted Naomi's instructions. Owen had not created the order to enrich himself. Claire moved closer to the counter. If this was signed last night, why were my accounts restricted this morning? Nora faced her. The review found that campaign and operating accounts had been pledged against estate-linked assets. Access is suspended pending tracing and independent administration. Claire's public composure finally broke. Those are my programs. They contain protected funds. Richard accused Owen of trapping them into presenting the waiver. Owen opened paragraph 8. I asked who changed this. You called me confused. Richard insisted the language was standard. That was when Nora authorized release of the hearing timestamp audit. Mara placed it beside the freeze order. It contained only Time's credentials and the order of access. Tuesday at 9:06, Vale Family Office accepted Owen's hearing notice. Wednesday at 4:22, the revised waiver was registered. Thursday at 7:52, the same internal account withdrew his hearing. Thursday at 9:17, the emergency freeze was signed. Friday at 10:20, Family Council presented the revised original while insisting no meaningful order existed. The sequence answered every question. They had received his notice, acted in his name, altered the waiver, and pressed him to sign before probate closed. Family Council stopped objecting. A reporter wrote down the times. The buyer's representative asked whether closing authority was suspended. Effective immediately, Nora said. Richard ordered Claire to leave with him. She did not move. You told me the waiver only protected the sale, she said. Evelyn answered before Richard could. It protected this family. Claire stared at the torn scholarship announcement in her hands. From whom? No one needed to say Owen's name. Richard called it an administrative mistake made through a shared account. Nora did not announce guilt. She announced procedure. The tower sale was frozen. An independent fiduciary would control the assets. Outside counsel would examine the waiver and account access. The misuse of Owen's identity was referred for review. Claire's authority over linked accounts was suspended and the board was ordered to preserve relevant material. Formal findings would take time. The consequences had already begun. Nora asked whether Owen wanted to challenge the designation or request a personal distribution. Every camera returned to him. Richard's argument depended on Owen wanting the money. Owen placed Naomi's notebook beside the order. I request. Neither, he said. I accept the duty to protect the principal, and I ask the court to complete the scholarship trust exactly as my mother directed. Nora asked if he understood that fiduciary responsibility barred personal use. That was never what she left me. What did she leave you? Owen glanced at the open book seal embossed on the fraudulent waiver. A door I was supposed to keep open. The sentence carried farther than Richard's insults had. Owen asked that no applicant lose eligibility and that temporary grants use funds already cleared by the court. Nora approved an emergency review subject to verification. Claire had used students to force a signature. Owen used his first recognized authority to protect them. Claire approached him after the cameras shifted toward Nora. I did not withdraw the hearing, she said. Did you know they had my notice? Her eyes filled, but she did not answer. Did you know paragraph 8 reached the order? My father said it was necessary. You never asked necessary for whom. She extended their wedding ring across her palm. Owen did not take it. Keep it until you decide whether you want to tell the truth without your parents in the room. Security moved Richard and Evelyn from the filing window. Claire remained behind the glass counter where they had expected Owen to surrender. At 4:03, 3 minutes after probate intake closed, the tower buyer formally acknowledged that the sale could not proceed. Mara stamped the freeze order into the public record. Owen's suspension remained. His rent was due and one finding had not repaired his marriage. But his mother's estate was safe. $500 million would remain frozen until the truth, not the veils, decided where it belonged. The freeze order did not end the case. It gave the truth time to survive. Vale Family Office opened an emergency review. Richard was removed from estate-linked transactions, Evelyn resigned from the scholarship campaign, and family counsel withdrew from the closing. Claire's appointment vote was canceled. Her account access remained suspended and she had to testify about the waiver and her parents' instructions. No one was marched away in handcuffs. No judge awarded Owen a fortune before sunset. The sale remained frozen while an independent administrator protected Naomi's principal and completed the trust. 3 days later, the Dunley Hotel called Owen back. The review found no misuse of hotel systems. Management restored his schedule, paid the missed shifts, and apologized. His supervisor offered to hide him from public attention. Owen declined. On his first night back, co-workers treated him differently after learning what the estate was worth. I was a porter last week, Owen told them. I am a porter tonight. The work had never humiliated him. Only people had. The apartment manager withdrew the payment demand. Owen put the lease in his own name and paid the next month from his wages, not the estate. Claire rented a studio across town. Weeks later, she asked to meet Owen at the courthouse cafeteria without her parents or advisors. I told the investigators everything, she said. Owen asked whether that included her knowledge of the revised paragraph. Yes. Claire admitted taking the folder to family counsel. She had not withdrawn the hearing, but knew her father's office possessed Owen's notice. She had told herself the sale would protect the campaign, her position, and their marriage. I kept calling it our future, she said, but I never asked whether you were allowed to choose it. Owen did not forgive her there. He said honesty was the beginning of responsibility, not the end. They remained separated while Claire cooperated and entered counseling. Once a week they talked without attorneys. Some meetings lasted 10 minutes, others through dinner. Their family remained intact without pretending it was repaired. 8 months later, the probate court approved the Naomi Blake Open Door Scholarship Trust. The principal remained under independent oversight. Owen served beside educators and community representatives with no unilateral spending power. The first class included 40 students, nursing assistants, mechanics, single parents, hotel employees, and high school seniors. The ceremony was held in a public library, not Blake Tower. There were no gold screens or donor tables, only folding chairs, students, and tearful parents. Owen wore his Navy hotel uniform because his shift began after the ceremony. Claire sat in the final row without a title or speech. When reporters requested a family photograph, she waited for Owen. I invited her forward. They stood on opposite sides of Naomi's display case. It was not reconciliation, only acknowledgement that Claire had finally chosen truth over status. The court returned Naomi's original jade seal, its chipped corner visible. Owen placed it beside blank scholarship applications. Above it were Naomi's words, "Keep the door open." The fraudulent waiver was voided. Any later tower sale required independent approval and could not bypass the trust. Richard and Evelyn faced continuing civil and professional reviews. Claire lost the board appointment and later took a salaried nonprofit job her parents had not arranged. Owen stayed at the Dunley. He reduced his hours but kept 2 night shifts each week. Dignity, he said, did not rise or fall with an account balance. After the ceremony, an envelope awaited him at the hotel. Inside was a note from the first student whose tuition had cleared. "My mother cleans offices at night. I thought people like us were supposed to keep the doors open for everyone else. Thank you for opening one for me." Owen folded it into the notebook that had carried Naomi's reference number for 11 years. Blake Tower remained frozen behind oversight and signatures that could no longer be forced. Across the city, one student had already enrolled. That was the part of Naomi's estate that had finally begun to move. So, what do you believe matters more, inheriting wealth or protecting the purpose behind it? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe quiet truth can still defeat public humiliation, subscribe for more stories about ordinary people who refuse to surrender their dignity.